most people who are chronically ill have an issue with mitochondrial health.
I work with an athlete, cut 3 hours off his time using 32 milligrams of methylene blue every 4 hours.
Wow. The biggest thing I see a pattern with is brain fog, anxiety, and sleep for hormonal changes.
For sure. When you lose your progesterone, you lose your GABA support.
It was debilitating.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And no one could figure it out.
I started getting these stories. All of a sudden, I started taking methylene blue for like 2 weeks, and I'm a different person.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Ageless Blonde Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm here with Dr. Scott, one of my favorite providers that talks all things methylene blue, hyperbaric oxygen, foundational medicine. You own the business Troscriptions, which all...
One of the co-founders, yes. Yeah.
Co-founders,
yes.
Which is one of my favorite companies where I get my methylene blue, also where I get my calm that I'm now using to help calm my nervous system. And we want to dive into all the benefits that these troches have and talk about longevity medicine. So let's start off with methylene blue.
Sure.
One of my favorite tools to use in longevity and to help with mental clarity and energy.
When did you learn about methylene blue, Amber, out of curiosity?
So funny enough, I feel like I've been doing methylene blue before many people were talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually was diagnosed with Lyme disease and I had really bad black mold exposure. I remember randomly, I think it was my naturopath that was like, you should try out some methylene blue. And I started reading a little bit about it. Mm-hmm. And I read how it was helping, it basically supports the mitochondria. Well, I had zero energy at the time.
When was this? What year?
I think it was around 2016, 2017, I started getting really sick. And it was almost like I had dementia-like patterns. I would go to the store and I would forget why I was there. And so I was like, I'm too young for this. This is just something wrong.
Sure, yeah.
And I would call my husband and I'd be like, hey, how do I get home? I can't remember. And I was like desperate to find something to help with my energy because I had just had my daughter.
Ah, yes.
And so obviously I was having a hormonal shift.
Big time, yeah.
My mitochondria was damaged for sure.
Yeah. And so you learned about it then. So you were one of the early ones to learn about it.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that time is it's very difficult to find good sources of methylene blue, right? So we were the first company in 2020 to come out with a commercial product using methylene blue for general sale. Before that, you typically had to go online and look at finding USP grade methylene blue from a lab.
I think that's what I had.
That's what you had
with
to do.
This label on it. I don't know if it was safe or not, but I was so desperate.
Yeah, and when we first launched the company, actually, it took us almost a year longer to launch than we anticipated because we had to find a good, clean source of methylene blue. And that's a big thing because methylene blue is made in a lab. It doesn't come from nature directly. And so when you're making it, it can be contaminated with heavy metals like lead, mercury, cadmium, and arsenic.
Right.
And you don't want that, especially in your situation. Really, anybody really wants that.
Right.
But if you're already sick and your mitochondria are under a lot of stress, and you give them that, especially at high doses, it could be pretty detrimental.
Right.
So it took us about a year longer to launch the company to find a good source. And admittedly, in the beginning, Amber, I was skeptical too. Because it's this very blue compound, and it's not from nature. And initially, when I grew up, my father's a chiropractor, and I grew up in this very natural world, and even for a long time, he was not really all for conventional medicine.
Sure.
But over the years, as he was in clinical practice, he's like, you need antibiotics sometimes. You need insulin if you're a diabetic, and that's a synthetic ingredient, or else you're going to die, right? Or you need to think about natural things are not always good for you either, especially in the wrong doses. If you forage for the wrong mushrooms, you can die of liver failure. I've seen this, unfortunately.
Right.
So that was the first thing for me. The second one was, this is a very blue compound. Are people really going to do this, right? And then, but then I started looking at the research. So Dr. Ted Achacoso is the founder of Troscriptions and Home Hope, our nonprofit. And we're looking at the research together, and we realized this is such a universal common issue, which is that the mitochondria, the part of our cells that don't work, they're supposed to work very well. They're the energy producing parts of our cell. They make ATP, which is our energy currency. 94% of US adults have some element of mitochondrial dysfunction. So it's a huge number of people.
That's a huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So only 6% of people are mitochondrially or metabolically healthy.
Why do you think, just to stop you,
why
are we all having issues with our mitochondria, and why? I mean, I think it's like I think most people who are chronically ill have an issue with mitochondrial health.
They do. And then you have to think about it. I think about it this way. I think that number one, where do we have the most mitochondria in our body? So when I was in in I think maybe middle school, maybe early high school. My daughter just went through this. I think she was in 8th grade, and she learns about the cell, right? You learn that there's a nucleus, there's cytoplasm, there's a Golgi body, there's endoplasmic reticulum, and there's a mitochondria, right? And there's cell membrane and everything else, right? But you see that there's just one mitochondria in that cell.
Right.
But we actually have some cells in our body that have thousands of mitochondria, and we have other cells in our body that have 0, actually. And that is all related to energy demand.
Right.
So what parts of your body have more energy demands versus others? And so in how it all works out, ovaries, so eggs, and sperm are the top number of mitochondria per cell.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
Ovaries,
crazy.
eggs are number 1. Makes sense. You're growing a baby.
Sure.
It's a big deal. It's a lot of energy, right? After your reproductive organs, it's your brain, your heart, your liver, your musculoskeletal tissue.
Right.
So if you think about it, what are people feeling? What are people having, right? They're having fertility problems, right?
Yeah.
Even at younger ages.
A lot
of brain fog, a lot of concentration issues, mental health disorders, cardiac dysfunction, liver detoxification issues, exercise intolerance.
Yeah.
And so it's everywhere, right?
Sure.
And chronic pain, everything else, right? And so when it comes down to it, there's like 4 or 5 major reasons why we're having mitochondrial dysfunction. And I'll go through them in kind of the importance, I think, but they're all important. Toxins in our environment.
Totally.
Okay? So toxic food, toxic plants, toxic water, toxic air,
Everywhere.
everywhere, right? And so
Right.
we have, toxic and pollutants like on our faces and in our mouths. Like, if you're using Listerine, you're bombing your mouth every day. Like, these are things that people don't think about, but these are toxins, right?
Sure.
And then you also think even medications, like some medications that we commonly prescribe are either deplete nutrients directly, or they directly damage the mitochondria. So if you deplete nutrients that are responsible for mitochondrial function, or you damage the mitochondria, you're not going to do very well, right?
Yeah.
And also a big category is infection. So if you have COVID infection, that's a mitochondrial stress of all stresses. Mold, Lyme. And all these other chronic illnesses that have an infectious component are directly having an effect on the mitochondria.
Yeah.
In addition, the big two actually are insulin resistance. So if you have a high blood sugar, your blood sugar, that glucose that you're taking in is putting a big stress on the mitochondria. Yeah, because all that glucose is, what is your body going to do with it, right? It has to try to make energy with it.
Right.
And so that's what the mitochondria do, right? They take energy from our food, especially our carbohydrates and our fats, and take electrons off our food and throw them into this thing called the electron transport chain in the mitochondria to make energy. So if you have a lot more glucose around, what happens is that you try to make a lot more energy. And then over time, we're more like a gasoline-powered car, meaning that we make this energy currency, ATP. We actually make about 150 pounds of it every single day. It's a huge amount of energy we make. But we also make what are called waste products of energy metabolism. We make carbon dioxide, we make water, which aren't really waste products, but that's what they are called, and reactive oxygen species, ROS. And the reactive oxygen species, those are the ones that we need in small amounts to signal the mitochondria to make more energy. It's like a feedback loop kind of thing.
Right.
But if you have those, but you don't have enough antioxidants to neutralize the stress of those reactive oxygen species, then you might start getting a breakdown of the capacity to make energy.
Right.
So you have this insulin that's coming in, the glucose that's coming in, and that's causing all this reactive oxygen species. And the biggest one outside of that is kind of a big heading. It's sympathetic activation. It's being in chronic fight or flight where your nervous system is always on.
So we're talking about the American people being in fight or flight and having way too much glucose, high blood sugar all the time.
Exposed to toxins in their environment,
everybody,
had an infection.
It's everybody.
So that you don't just fall into one category, right?
No.
Then once you get mitochondrial dysfunction, it's very difficult to really optimize and fix that without like a very intentional strategy.
Yeah.
And for example, if you're in fight or flight all the time and you don't address that, there's nothing you can do to support mitochondrial function because you're already clamped down, right? Because the sympathetic nervous system is like your fight or flight, run from the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it's all. And that's the idea with the sympathetic nervous system. We used to have these very transient, stressful events that would go away, right?
Right.
But now we're constantly lights, people, meetings, kids, work, whatever, traffic in LA.
We're in a state of it.
Yeah, all the time. And so, but the otber part of our nervous system is called the parasympathetic nervous system. That part of our nervous system is supposed to be our rest, digest, detoxification, and recovery. If you're not getting there, you're not doing those things.
Right.
And so when you're in that sympathetic all the time, you're releasing hormones like cortisol, neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and epinephrine that are clocking your mitochondria even more.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you start getting to that same cycle.
Sure.
And this sympathetic parasympathetic balance and mitochondrial dysfunction is something I call the sympathetic spiral of doom, because you get this sort of like sympathetic spiral that's very difficult to break.
Yeah.
And so those are the reasons why mitochondria are having such a hard time in
Right. And I'd say anybody with chronic illness, they're definitely going to be in a fight or flight state.
Yes.
And they're definitely going to have issues with their mitochondria.
Yes.
So I would see doctor after doctor trying to get to the root of why I had so much brain fog and so much fatigue. And it was debilitating.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And no one could figure it out. So finally, I stumbled upon it myself by utilizing actually methylene blue before anyone was using it. And I was like, wait, why is this working? I couldn't understand. I knew it had an antimicrobial property, but why was it working for me? And I mean, I'm telling you, it was life-changing. There were a few things in my life that I've used, I can say, that are life-changing, and it was definitely one of them.
It's amazing, yeah.
And what I couldn't understand was, why was it the only thing that kind of turned a corner for me?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how to fix the mitochondria at, years of being sick. And
yeah. We had a lot of those stories initially, and it really gave me a lot of confidence that it was going to go well. Because I was initially skeptical because of the compound and just because it is blue. But I started getting these stories similar to yours. Like I had tried X, Y, Z for years and years. And then all of a sudden I started taking methylene blue for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm a different person. I'm back to work. My pain's better. I've been dealing with long COVID for 2 years and I haven't had anything work for me. And now I'm taking this.
Yeah.
And we had a lady that bought it for her grandmother. She was in her mid-20s and I think grandmother was in their 80s. And her grandmother had mild cognitive impairment.
Right.
And she gave her grandmother the methylene blue. She started telling stories about her childhood that nobody in the family had heard before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It woke her brain up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think what it comes down to, as a general mechanism for people is that methylene blue is a fantastic support for the mitochondria. I mentioned how our cells are like gasoline-powered cars. Methylene blue is more like an electric-powered car because it has the capacity to help you make energy and compensate for destruction or dysfunction or some of those pathways in the mitochondria that help you make energy, that electron transport chain. And at the same time as helping you make energy and compensate for all that, it can also work exactly like an antioxidant. So like detoxifying. So even though you're making more energy now because you have the methylene blue on board, you're also getting more detoxification support. So you're not clocking the system without giving it some support on the other side of that equation, right? Methylene blue recycles NAD. It can recycle FAD as well, which comes from complex 2. So it has all these other mechanisms that are interesting. But in the essence, what I tell my patients all the time, it's depending on the person, I say either energy, I say this is energy and resilience, or energy and detox, right? Or energy and inflammation support.
Yeah.
Those are the ways to think about it because it can help with energy and it can help with inflammation because it does it on both ends of the cycle.
Interesting,
and so lower doses we're talking about are key here though, because if you start off at too high of a dose, what can happen is you can get detox kinds of symptoms.
Herxing.
And you can get herxing, and you can also get, because you're also creating more of an antimicrobial response.
Yeah.
So for me, I typically use doses around 8 milligrams to about 25 milligrams for mitochondrial support, typically. Sometimes twice a day, depending on the person. If it's more anti-infective support, it's a little bit different, right? Because I usually, for a chronic infection like a Lyme, for example, like I wouldn't start somebody off at the Lyme dosing, which is around a milligram per kilogram, milligram and a half per kilogram.
Right.
So that's ideal body weight. So that's anywhere between like 50 and 100 milligrams a day of methylene blue. But
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And you don't want to start there if it's somebody that's been sick for a long time.
I've always found, and I want to know what you think, but like most people that are in the chronic illness population have to start at a low dose and slowly ramp up.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the clients that I talk to or patients I've had, they're like, I'm so scared to start it because I'm afraid of that die-off. And I'm usually always instructing them to start really low, like 1 milligram or less. You know what I mean? And just slowly increase. Is that the same experience?
The same experience with me.
Yeah.
But I think what I try to do here is understand the acuity and the chronicity as the big piece, and then what is our focus, right? Because if you're working with somebody with Lyme and you're looking to titrate the dose up over time, what you're first going to find is that you're actually going to feel better if you go slowly because they have improved mitochondrial support.
Sure.
And then once you get them a little bit up higher on the dosing, then it becomes more anti-infective. And that's good because they already have the mitochondrial support there.
Totally.
The higher the dose, you make more hydrogen peroxide. And so people know you can go to the store and buy hydrogen peroxide, but actually our cells make it. And they make it as an anti-infective. They make it also as an anti-cancer mechanism as well. And so you have, the higher doses could be great for that, but that hydrogen peroxide, what it does is stimulate pathways to help you make more antioxidants.
Yeah.
If you can't do that very effectively, you're not going to feel very good, right?
Yeah.
And so, depending on the person, but I'm often doing more than just using methylene blue, even though it's very at lower doses, it's very, very well tolerated. You're giving additional antioxidant support, giving binder support, right?
Yeah.
But what's nice about methylene blue is that what I find is a lot of people just take antioxidants, and that can be helpful. But if you don't have the capacity to make energy,
I didn't find it helpful.
Exactly. Right.
I needed the methylene blue first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you just don't have the capacity to make energy and you get rid of the sort of garbage stuff, that's better, but you still don't have any energy to make, right? So what are you going to do, right? And so a classic example I've heard a couple of times is people that use sauna, for example, and they use the sauna for detox and they're using binders and antioxidants and they still feel just washed out afterwards. But then I've started using methylene blue for these patients, these friends actually too. And what you find is that they don't get the same dump of just feeling exhaustion,
right?
Because they have the energy capacity at the same time
to handle the toxic load.
Yeah, so I think I'm a big fan of antioxidants appropriately, and I mean obviously you can have too many antioxidants as well. Right. That can also cause challenges, but in general, I'm a big fan of them. Mm-hmm. But you have to use them in concert with something that's going to help with energy. That seems to be a great way to start people off on the path. It may not be something that you want to use or you need to use methylene blue all the time for the rest of your life. I'm sure you're not using it every day anymore, right? But the goal really is that over time you need less of it as you're optimizing your health, as you're doing things for your vitamins, your minerals, your nutrients, your cofactors.
You still need the foundation.
Yeah, but that can take time. That can take time. And so I think it's important that methylene can fill in like a significant gap there.
Yeah.
Then over time, it can be something you use when you have additional stress, right? If you are traveling or if you have a stressful day at work or
you're sick.
Or you're sick, right? Yeah, I use it a ton in all those cases. And that's because the other way that methylene blue can work is that it works just like oxygen in the cells. Yep. And so as a result of that, you can see more capacity at lower oxygen levels. So how does this translate? So if you're on an airplane, most people maybe don't know this, that you're pressurized in the cabin to be about 8,000 feet above sea level. Mm-hmm. This is to make the plane lighter, to help it, make it easier for you to travel and use less gas. But when you do that, your oxygen level is going to go down. It's 21% at sea level. It's about 17% or so on an airplane.
Yep.
That's a significant hypoxic stress right away.
Yeah, for sure.
And so as a result of that, your body goes into this mode of inflammation. It gets more reactive oxygen species. And so if you have methylene blue around, you don't have that same challenge because you have compensatory mechanisms.
So taking it while you're on the flight would be super beneficial.
Yeah, typically I like to people start like 3 or 4 hours before.
Okay.
And then another dose on the plane. And then depending on where they're going, we have a whole travel protocol on the website where you can go.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's great.
I recently heard someone talking about taking basically hydrogen water every 30 minutes. It's the same concept. Except
hydrogen's a little bit different, right? Because hydrogen's more on the antioxidant side of things.
Right.
So it's not as much an energy enhancer as it is a detoxifier. But I
guess I meant with lowering inflammation.
Yes, totally.
What I was
it's
thinking.
Important.
Yeah. So you could technically do hydrogen water and methylene blue while
I do it all
you're
the time.
flying.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Do you notice a big difference?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't convinced about hydrogen for a long time.
Yeah.
But then I started using it, especially when I travel.
Yeah.
And I have felt a difference.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly how it works.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really knows how it works.
We just all drink it. But we say lowers inflammation. And
But I do, there's something there, and so I'm a fan of it as well. And so I think it's just important to think about it in not in just one compound. Like, what are you doing in totality, right? And so that's how I think about the methylene blue on travel, because it's really can be great supportive if you're low oxygen and you're have more UV and cosmic radiation up there, and you also have people that are sick around you and coughing around you.
You're going to prevent viruses.
Yes, colds, and the stress
flus.
of travel. Yeah, exactly. Everything.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of using it in travel, and then I also use it in athletics as well. So people, endurance-wise, you're gonna get more endurance if you use methylene blue, because it can give you a longer time until you reach that lactate threshold. So it's called aerobic capacity or whatever. And so you can go for longer.
Right.
And I've worked with athletes that have done long races, and we've done using methylene blue, we've seen them significantly improve their times.
If you're an athlete, would you say a higher dose would be necessary, or what kind of dosing would they do?
It depends on what they're doing. If it's depending on what kind of endurance racing they're doing, everybody's gonna be a little bit different, but they are gonna typically need more.
That's what
because
I figured.
It's going to be. So, for example, there's a race. I live in Colorado. There's a race called the Leadville Race, and it's an ultra marathon, 100 miles. It's the hardest one in this country. It's like 13,000 foot peaks, and it's crazy. I work with an athlete, cut 3 hours off his time, using 32 milligrams of methylene blue every 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of methylene blue.
That's a big dose.
But
that's a big dose. Yeah.
That's what he needed because he was running for 100 freaking miles.
And it worked quite well.
It did. Yeah, we did a couple other things, but that was the major intervention to really help him. Really helped him a lot. So I think that it can run the gamut. Like using methylene blue for just starting off your journey on health and wellness and really coming from a chronic complex place, or it can be on the other side of it where you're using it as needed for endurance, for performance, for travel, for sick days, for stressful days at work.
Right.
All those things, it all applies, and so that's what I like about it. The key is just how often you're using, your dosing, and then often, almost always, except for it's an acute reason, like acute infection or acute trauma, you're almost always starting off at low doses and increasing it. And then that sweet spot typically is around 4 to about 8 milligrams to about 25 milligrams.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. I do get asked often from my clients that they're on antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, you need to obviously talk to your doctor about it first, or wean off your antidepressant if they want to. It's up to them. Not everyone. That's not the case for everybody. But they're always asking me, can I do low dose methylene blue on my antidepressant? So what do you say to that? It's better to wean off, because it can't be used as an alternative. It does help with mood.
It does.
So I was just curious, what your stance is, because that's hard for people that have been on antidepressants for years. They really want to use methylene blue.
Yeah. So methylene blue does have this property of being what's called a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which means that it prevents the breakdown, thereby increasing serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. It does it in a dose-dependent way, though, meaning that low doses do it a little bit, higher doses will do it higher, et cetera. And so there is this potential interaction between methylene blue and either regular antidepressants or some of the new ones that are S-anorized, the serotonin, norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. And so the answer is a little bit nuanced because in the largest sense, the most important is that there have never been any studies showing that oral methylene blue combined with oral antidepressants will cause any major risk.
Right.
There have been some studies looking at IV methylene blue using high-dose antidepressants causing something called serotonin syndrome.
Yes, exactly.
Which is extremely rare. If you're a practitioner, you've probably never seen it. If you think you've seen it, you probably haven't. This is very, very rare. Even psychiatrists that I've spoken to over the years say it just doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, if you are on an SSRI or a medication like that, I do recommend working with a practitioner.
Of course.
Sometimes there could be symptoms related to the increase in serotonin that are not serotonin syndrome. Sometimes you get mild headaches. If you're already on antihypertensive medications, if you're on blood pressure medicines, and you're on an SSRI as well, and you take methylene blue, you might see your blood pressure go up as well.
Okay.
I've seen that. And sometimes I see some GI distress because there's a lot of serotonin in your gut. It's about 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, you might see some GI distress. But I haven't seen it that much. I have integrative psychiatrists that I work with that wean their patients off their antidepressants and get them on methylene blue instead.
For sure.
But I always recommend doing it with practitioner supervision.
I do as well,
And I think that's just the safest way to do it, and as directed by your medical providers. But they may not know a lot about methylene blue, but that's okay. It's more just kind of monitoring you while you're doing it.
It's nice to have the option, though, that if you do want to wean off, this is a nice alternative, or, working with someone. And I have had a couple clients that were able to do a really low dose of methylene blue with their antidepressant
I have tons.
Safely.
I have tons of colleagues that do it all the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe with medical supervision is a short story. And I think the key with methylene blue, Amber, as you know, is just making sure that you're getting really clean stuff. And that's what we do with Troscriptions, right? Where our company was, as I mentioned, took us a long time to first launch because to find quality stuff. And so it's really important to make sure it's not contaminated with heavy metals and also, get it from a reputable source.
Of course.
I as a blanket plea, maybe.
Yeah.
Please don't buy your supplements on Amazon.
No, I know.
Amazon warehouses are notorious for having counterfeit everything. Yeah. And you just don't know what you're getting. If you're going to buy it from Amazon, at least get it from the actual company that you trust.
Right.
The certificates of analysis are interesting because once you get methylene blue or really any supplement that's coming from the companies that you currently buy from in the United States, almost all the raw ingredients are coming from other countries.
Right.
Okay? And what's supposed to happen is that the other countries, those manufacturers that make the raw ingredients, they have certificates of analysis that go with their product or their ingredient that says it meets the specifications that you're looking for. It's X percentage purity, potency, heavy metals, all that stuff, micro, things like that, right? But the problem is that a lot of companies take that at face value, meaning that it comes into the country with their certificate of analysis and they just put in their product and they sell it to you, right?
Yeah.
But they never test is it actually what it's supposed to be?
Right.
And with methylene blue, that's very, very important. I mean, with anything, it's very, very important.
But especially methylene blue.
Especially methylene blue, right?
Yeah.
And so what we found over the years is that even from our trusted manufacturer, sometimes it doesn't meet our spec and we have to send it away. And so what we do is that we test it again with another independent lab here in the United States to make sure it's meeting the specifications that were on their label. And there's this big recent scandal about creatine gummies. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
So
I don't think so.
Creatine's like, all the rage right now, right?
Everybody's
and so there was this
one.
company that was selling creatine gummies at 0 milligrams of creatine.
It's just all sugar.
It's just all
gelatin.
sugar and gelatin. But the company's manufacturer had a certificate of analysis that said, oh yeah, this is a perfect amount of creatine in it, right?
No.
Oh yeah, totally. So this is what you don't know unless you know, right?
So you test twice.
So we test twice. So it comes from our manufacturer with a certificate of analysis. We trust our partners, but then we verify it ourselves.
Yeah, of
again,
course.
and then sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes we have to get other sources.
Well,
and so
I can speak to your company because I've tried so many different types of methylene blue, and I'll say that Troscriptions has been the best for me and for my family and also for my clients. Like, they notice a difference right away. I just got a call from someone that was like, this is the first time I've had mental clarity from using Canatine. She's so happy. Like, she was in menopause. It's changed her life.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I've tried lots of other companies, and it's definitely been one of the best companies I've ever used for methylene blue. So you guys did a really good job.
Yeah, we
with
really
the
do care.
testing. Yeah. No, it's
we care
very
about it. We care about. I mean, I'm a clinician. I'm still seeing patients.
Right.
I have 4 children. I give my products to my kids. I really care. You know? And like, I couldn't imagine. So Dr. Ted, who's also, he's the pioneer and the co-founder. We're both physicians. We've seen thousands of patients collectively over multiple decades, and it's like, we don't want to do something that is just to do it. Like, and what happened in 2025 is that methylene blue became very popular, as you know.
Yeah.
And that's great. There's more of a zeitgeist about it, but then that came with another 75 or 100 companies that now have methylene blue products.
Right.
And the liquids are the biggest culprits. So the liquids themselves are messy, number one. And number two, they never meet their potency claims, meaning that if you see a label that says it's 1 milligram per dropper of ml of methylene blue, it's usually about half that, actually. And we have a number of people that move over from liquids to our stuff, our troches, because they notice the difference at the exact same dose. Like, is this the same dose of liquid I just took? It can't be, But it's because it's as potent as it says on the label.
Yeah.
And we're using a troche is nice because it's like a way to homogenize and make sure everything's the same.
Yeah.
As opposed to liquids, which degrade over time.
Yeah.
And so the troche was our form factor from the beginning, which is this. It's called a troche. It's a buccal lozenge. It basically is a square lozenge that goes between your upper cheek and gum, and it's titratable. So you can break it up into quarters, halves, or fulls, and you can find the right dose for you. Buccal's nice because it's fast in the mouth. It goes directly into circulation.
You feel it immediately, like way quicker than if I used to take compounded methylene blue, and it would take me like a while to feel the difference. Yeah. This in the morning, it's like having a cup of coffee. It's better than coffee. Like, I feel it right away.
Yeah, it doesn't have that stimulating feel. It just has this elevating feel. You don't feel like you crash.
You just
after
feel awake.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, the nice thing about methylene blue too, even though we make this buccal troche that I love, especially for things like our blue Canatine and some of our products, from pure methylene blue, we have our Just Blue. It is very blue, Amber, as you know.
Yeah, my mouth is blue.
And so as a result, a lot of people don't want to have their mouth blue. And what you can do is you can take it on an empty stomach. Methylene blue is a very bioavailable ingredient, which means that most of what you take actually gets into the body. Yeah. And so as a result of that, you can swallow it. I typically recommend swallowing on an empty stomach if that's the case. And then a cool trick is to eat about 15 or 20 minutes later, because that can drive it forward a little bit more into the body and peristaltic waves of your gut and get it to digest and absorb faster that way.
Yeah, I tell all my clients if they don't want their mouth to be blue, just to swallow it. But I should be telling them that they empty stomach and eat a little bit after.
Yeah, you'll notice if you take any supplement or anything on an empty stomach, and if you eat something about 15 or 20 minutes later, you're going to feel it faster than you would otherwise. It's just because that's how digestion works, right? Yeah. But yes, that's typically the compensatory mechanism for not having a blue mouth.
Right.
But if you do have a lot of brain fog, if you do have a lot of concentration issues, you want to feel it faster, the mouth is the way to go.
That's what I usually do. Yeah.
What is your favorite mitigation strategy for your mouth?
Actually, I try to put it all the way in the back.
Okay.
Because if it's all the way in the back at the top, you can't actually see. So my tongue will be a little bit blue. Yeah. But if I leave it in the front, my teeth are all blue. So I've gotten really good at putting it all the way in the top back, and no one can see it.
Nice. Well,
yeah. And then I after I've let it sit, because I can feel it so much. It's so much more potent this way. I'll brush my teeth later on, but like it goes away. Like it's not going to stay forever. Nope. It doesn't stain forever. Yeah. And then I'll whiten my teeth. Like everyone whitens their teeth. I drink matcha it stains my teeth. Anything, coffee stains your teeth, you know?
It
So
does.
it's like, it's totally worth it. I don't care about having a blue mouth.
Yeah, as long as you don't have anything plastic in your mouth, you're good. Like if you have dentures, if you have plastic veneers.
Oh, it will stain, I'm sure.
It will stain and never come off.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, so you have to be aware of that.
What would you say about like some clinical signs or some labs that would tell somebody, like even just a patient, or even if it's a provider watching, like what would be some indication that they should implement methylene blue into their, and that's a loaded question. So you can,
Yes. I mean, I think the best way to describe it, Amber, is that everybody is probably will benefit from using methylene blue at some point.
That's what I thought too.
But again, it's about what people are interested in, what people are going to engage in. I still understand not everybody's going to want to do it because it's blue, and it does make your urine blue too. So you have to be aware of that. So that's something to be aware of. But I think for me, the way I usually message it with my patients is like, look, if they're in a place where they're coming from a chronic complex place, if fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, long COVID, they've been sick for a long period of time, then I go, look, your mitochondria stress. I don't care what testing I do. I know it's the case, right?
The symptoms are
I'm going to
there.
do the testing. We're going to do all that. What I typically would do is get all the testing done and then start them on the methylene blue because I like to get a good base of where they are. And then they start with the methylene blue to start getting them feeling better.
Sure.
And then in those kinds of patients, sometimes we're using it 7 days a week for weeks or sometimes months to get them to a place where their system is now able to tolerate kind of weaning it down. In others, it's only when you have more mitochondrial stress because you're already pretty well optimized, you feel pretty good, your energy's good. Mm-hmm. You don't need to have methylene blue that often, and that's okay. And there's been some question by some influencers and others about some of them doctors by name, but not by practice, that would say, well, you shouldn't take methylene blue if you have optimized mitochondria.
Yeah.
And I say, well, first of all, 94% of people don't.
Right.
And the second of all, even people that are in that 6% are going to have some times when their mitochondria are more stressed.
Sure.
Might be able to benefit from it, but
whether
they wouldn't
they're
want to take
sick,
it. Right.
stressed, traveling,
all the
any of
things.
those reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a proponent of everybody taking methylene blue every day for the rest of their life. I think that it's one of the things where you want to use it in a targeted way when you can.
Right.
But when you're at a place where you're pretty sick, maybe you're starting to use peptides, maybe you're starting to work like with more provider and trying to get, this is where it could be like a nice, a really foundational aspect of helping you actually do better in the things that you want to do. Like you want to do peptides, which I know you're interested. You want to start getting on hormones. You want to do regenerative therapies, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I promise you, they'll work better. All of those things if your mitochondria are working better.
Right. The foundation, the cell. I mean, I think we're heading into a movement of cellular healing, and the mitochondria has to be a part of that. It's huge.
Yeah, it's where everything starts and ends, really, right? Because if your mitochondria aren't working very well, you are not going to feel well.
Right.
And it's sort of like this top-down, bottom-up thing where like all these things are causing mitochondrial dysfunction. And as a result of that, the mitochondria are causing all these other things that are happening, like everything from degeneration to cancer to multiple different, comorbidities as we get older.
Diseases,
and so it's really like a whole top-down, bottom-up thing where like if you don't address the top stuff, then the mitochondria is going to get, all that, and then it's going to go from the bottom up, and the whole system's going to. And so really the future of medicine, I really do think is cellular medicine.
Yeah.
And then we have this, this whole nonprofit organization where Troscriptions came from, called Health Optimization Medicine.
Right.
And practice, actually, Home Hope. And that's
Which is so cool, by the way. I love that you do that.
Yeah, actually, Troscriptions was the birthing of it was from the nonprofit. And the idea with the nonprofit was to train practitioners on a framework that optimizes health rather than focuses on disease.
Right.
There's lots of standards of care for disease,
Sure.
diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, but there's no standard of care for health. And so we define health as somebody that's optimized between the ages of 21 and 30 years of age. Mm-hmm. So we want to get everybody back to a hormone, nutrient, gut, neurotransmitter, everything to when they were back to that level, that
Which
that
is
age
also
group.
prevention.
Yes, 100%. So that's the thing. The beneficial side effects of optimizing your health is that everything else gets easier. You feel better, of course, but you're going to get less sick. You're going to feel like you have just more energy.
Sure.
You're not going to require as much methylene blue over time and other support. And that's a big part of it for us, is that health optimization serves the long-term goal, which is to optimize people's health. But along the way, you have lots of roadblocks. You have lots of challenges and energy and focus and stress and sleep. These are all things that really can be very detrimental to your health. And so that's what Troscriptions really helps with, which is that now, while you're on the longer path of optimizing.
Yeah. So let's talk about nicotine.
Okay.
I want to know your thoughts on nicotine. Obviously, I started first taking nicotine with the Canatine. That was my first experience.
Yeah.
And I couldn't not believe how much mental clarity I had. And not only that, I wasn't getting sick. Like I wasn't getting viruses. I mean, I know it has methylene blue too, but like even when I was taking methylene blue before, I would still get, like the kids would come home, I would get sick. I started doing the canatine with the nicotine, and all of a sudden I was like, wait, I'm like flying through tests, reading articles, like, doing things that I'm like normally take me way longer, cleaning my house. My focus was on point. My workouts were better. And then I was like, okay, maybe I need to start doing some nicotine patches because I wanted more, of course, right?
Sure,
it's like you start with a little bit and you want a little bit more. But I want to hear your thoughts on nicotine, how it supports focus, motivation, also with neuroinflammation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was skeptical for a long time too. I was in, probably you're the same generation of like the DARE generation where like, don't do drugs, don't smoke, don't all this stuff.
Same.
I understand it, right? Because nicotine is addictive, no doubt about it. But it's more addictive when it's added to the additives and other things that are in tobacco-containing products, and especially if you vape it or smoke it, right?
Exactly.
Because it goes into your system so fast that way. So I don't recommend ever vaping or ever smoking.
Right.
I recommend using it if you're going to at very low doses. Less than about 5 milligrams per day is really typically the dose. Nicotine does build tolerance. You have to be careful because it is short-acting. It's only about an hour to 2 hours of additional focus that you're going to get before it goes away. So people take more and more and more. So you have to be very careful with that.
Yeah.
With all that being said, it's a fantastic compound.
Yeah.
It's been around a long time, and we have a very good sense of how it works. It binds to certain receptors in the brain called the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. That when nicotine binds, it increases the release of serotonin, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, and dopamine, and serotonin. It's like all of them. And you feel really good when it comes out. And the cool thing about that is that your focus gets better, your memory gets better, your verbal fluidity gets better, your ability to recall things from your long-term memory and bring them up, all your executive function, all the stuff in the front of your head that kind of keeps your capacity up. Nicotine's great for all that.
Yeah.
And then what's really interesting about it too is that it's got this anti-inflammatory component as well, which is very interesting. And the reason why it works that way is it also works on the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the nerve that comes out of our brain. What's called like the winding nerve. It goes through all of our organs, and it maintains what's called our parasympathetic capacity. So it helps relax the nervous system, which is interesting, right? So because the main neurotransmitter that runs the vagus nerve or powers it or feeds it is the acetylcholine neurotransmitter. And so you have nicotine coming in the brain, it's stimulating. Like you have this stimulated feeling, you feel good. But in the body, it's more relaxing. It's crazy. It's very interesting. So like this sort of, and as a result of that relaxing vagus nerve tone, you're actually improving immune system function there too. And you're actually decreasing inflammation in the brain in these type of immune system cells called the microglia. So you get microglia inflammation going down. You have parasympathetic activation in your actual organs themselves. And then you have stimulation in your brain. It's like a very cool combination. And when it's nice is that you don't need a lot of nicotine to do this.
Right.
For most people, you can do. I mean, in blucanatine, for example, there is a 1 milligram of nicotine in a full troche combined with caffeine, methylene blue, and CBD. The average dose is a half of a troche, which is just a half milligram of nicotine. And it's slow acting, right? So it doesn't hit you immediately like vaping or smoking. It takes 5 or 10 minutes for it to kick in, which is still pretty quick if you dissolve in the mouth. But as a result of that, it's not as rewarding for the system that you feel like you need another hit right away.
Yeah.
So the risk of it using an R form is very, very low. Even patches is relatively low, although patches over time, people will feel like they need more over time to get the same effect.
Yeah, I've went up on my dose a little bit, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should start to come back down on it.
Yeah.
But I do feel so much better with using a patch or with the canatine. I'm like, it's night and day.
I play with the patches too. I like the patches sometimes because it's on you and you have like a kind of consistent dose for a while. And so I play around too, and that's reasonable, right? And a lot of people in the world of chronic illness are using a lot more nicotine because of the anti-inflammatory components of it. And so I have a lot of the chronic illness patients that are using nicotine patches and nicotine gums. And you have to be careful about the gums and the lozenges out there because a lot of them have a lot of fillers and chemicals and things like that. It's good. It's
even hard to find a clean patch. I've been looking into a couple different brands. I found that like Walgreens and Rugby. I don't know if you've heard of Rugby.
That's the one that I use.
Good.
Yeah, the nice one. The reason that one's nice is because you can cut up the patches easy.
Yes,
some of the
I cut them up too.
Yeah, some of the development of some of the patches now you can't cut them.
Right.
But the Rugby ones you can. So I use those periodically.
Yeah.
I use the blucanatine as well, and I kind of go back and forth.
What's your favorite product
of ours?
Yeah.
Well, that's a loaded question. I would say it depends, but my tried and true for most of my patients is a combination of our Just Blue, our lower strength methylene blue, and a product that we have called Tro Plus Mune.
Yep.
This is our high strength version of the cordyceps mushroom.
Yes.
It's the active component of the mushroom called cordycepin.
Yep.
And cordyceps is usually taken in the morning for more energy, but cordycepin works on what's called the adenosine system. And so it increases deep sleep. So you take it at night. It's antiviral. It's anti-cancer, actually, which is really interesting. And it's
it's
also
anti-cancer. I didn't know that.
And it's anti-inflammatory. It's antioxidant. And it's got really cool properties to help regulate the inflammatory and sort of growth pathways in the body. And so I use it all the time in patients with chronic issues, and they do very well with it.
I've been taking it every night at bedtime, probably for the last 6 months.
Okay.
And also, like I said, hardly any colds or viruses this year at all, when normally I get sick so frequently from my kids. I'm sure you're like the same way.
I used to get sick maybe 30% of every conferences that I went to.
Yeah.
Like I was away almost 2 years in a row now, like almost every month for a conference, right? And conferences are the worst. They're just like super spreader events.
Right.
Did you get sick after A4M? Did you? Okay.
No.
So by half of my team, 3/4
But I
of my
was
team.
taking...
Yeah, there you go,
I
right?
was taking Troimmune, and I was taking methylene blue, and I was doing nicotine patches. So, I mean...
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And I was doing all that stuff too, except for the nicotine patches, but
Yeah.
I'm doing other things as well. And 3/4 of my team came back with the flu. And
No
then
way.
Boomer's the CEO, and myself and Dr. Ted, who were the co-founders of the company, we all were fine.
Yeah.
We were doing our methylene blue, we were doing our Troimmune, we have...
It made a big difference then.
It does,
Yeah.
it does. And then also just clearing out your nose every night is a good idea. So like get some nasal spray when you're traveling, and just something very basic can be very helpful.
Right.
But those are super spreader events. But since I started using the Troimmune, it's been so much better.
Right.
We actually, in my house, we have a little bowl of green stuff. My kids call it the green stuff. And anytime anybody's feeling like something's happening, something's coming down with something, like I just give them a little bit of Troimmune.
They think it's candy.
Well,
it's sweet.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
They don't. Some of my kids don't mind. Some of my kids think I should make it into a gummy, but maybe one day.
Yeah.
But because
A kid's gummy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you give it to your kids.
I do give my kids,
okay.
yeah.
All right. I'll have to give it to my kids.
Yeah.
too.
So it's I can't recommend that unless it's under practitioner
No,
guidance.
I know.
However, it's a very safe molecule overall.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I give them like little bits. I
Yeah.
have my son, he's 8. He's feeling a little sick, and we gave him for a couple of days. What I find is that if you give it, you can do it a couple different ways. You can take it prophylactically, like you are. You can take it like for a shorter term prophylactically if you know you're going to be in a higher risk, like a conference.
Right.
Or you can take it if somebody else is sick, so you don't get sick, like your kids. Or you can do it the immediate signs that you're having something, that you're coming down with something.
Sure.
That's when you can start taking it too, and that's what I typically do with my kids. And I can see that if they do get sick, it's not as significant. Like
Right.
if they let me, like one of my daughters, just never lets me. I'm like, and like 3 days in, she's like, "I'm sorry, I should have taken the green stuff." She doesn't like the taste of it.
I think it tastes great.
I know,
it's pretty. It tastes like apples, kind of.
Yes, it does.
Like
It's green apple,
I don't think it's bad at all. I feel like my kids would definitely do. I make my kids take all kinds of bitter herbs, and they would love it.
This is much better than that.
Okay, good
So
to
I think
know.
my favorite two are those, but I think that the one that I probably use the most personally is our GABAergic products, the ones that work on the GABA side.
Which one? The Calm
I use
or
I use the Trocalm a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for it is that I tend to be type A like a lot of people, so it's hard for me to calm down my nervous system.
Okay.
I have ways of doing this, of course, and I have things
Right.
that are built into my days most of the time to kind of decrease the stress response.
Right.
But having something to kind of go to drop your nervous system down is really, really important for me.
Right.
And I find for a lot of my patients too, right? You can't heal if you're always in sympathetic. You're
No.
always in that fight or flight. You can't even, if you're going to the gym and you want to build your muscles, you can't do that if you're always in fight or flight. You make your most gains outside of the gym, not when you're actually working out. And so people don't realize that, I got to get big in the gym. No, you get big when you stop working out, because that's when your body can relax.
Right.
And if you're going into a workout super stressed, you're not going to have a lot of reserve when you go in there. You're not going to make as many gains either. So for me, it's like, it's always looking at that parasympathetic side of things.
Well, and also so many people are on anti-anxiety medications.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So
Yeah.
this is an alternative to anti-anxiety medication, in my opinion.
It can be.
Because I mean, I have taken, as needed for panic attacks, Ativan. I don't use it regularly. And then I tried the Calm, and I was like, I feel like it kind of acted similarly when I needed something to calm my anxiety, or just to help me relax, or to fall asleep. Because I used to have panic attacks when I had the chronic health problems.
Sure.
And so now I'm like, I just keep it in the fridge and use it if I feel anxious. And it's been amazing.
That's great. That's exactly what I love to hear, because that's how it's supposed to be used.
Right.
And we do have practitioners that are working with patients that are able to wean them off some of these anxiety medications and get them on Trocalm. I've done it myself. I've weaned some of my patients off things like Valium and other things. It's not easy, but you can do it.
Right.
It takes time.
Sure.
And you have to be very intentional about it, but you can do it. And that's the idea, is that there are natural alternatives. And the way we formulated Troscriptions is very low doses in synergy together, so that the sum is greater than the parts, kind of thing. And then if you look at Trocom, you look at blucanatine, some of the products, you would look at some of the ingredients, and some people they're like, how does any of this work? These are such low doses. And I'm like, well, it's because the sum is greater than the parts, right? And so that's what it really all comes down to. So I'm a big proponent of what I always talk about is that you need to have a base, and like I like the Just Blue and the Tro Plus Immune and Trommune for that. But if you're already in that sympathetic too often, it's very difficult for you to fully heal, fully recover, fully be able to be the best person you want to be. And that's a big part of it. And so for me, my main two are probably the Trocom and the Trommune that I take. Although I take the Just Blue maybe 3 days a week, and then when I'm traveling, I take it more, of course. But in general, I use all of our products at different times, and I was like the first I was like the second person that tried our blucanatine, I remember.
Oh gosh.
And I didn't know what a troche, I forgot what the troche was. And so the first time I took it, I took a huge bite of it.
Oh
and
no.
That was not good because all the nicotine went directly into my head. And I got to give me a headache.
Yeah.
But over the years, we've gotten so many great responses of people just like, this is a troche. This is how you use it.
Yeah.
You can titrate and find your dose. And you're going to feel it, within 5 or 10 minutes typically. And that's impactful, right? And I think that's what's been great. And I use them all in clinical practice.
Right. How do you think basically stacking methylene blue and nicotine, or these Troscriptions, your products, how are they going to be beneficial with peptides, GLP-1s, and hormones? Because that is the rage. Everyone's talking. I'm
it's a solution to everything.
I'm big on peptides, and so. Everyone's obviously, when I'm treating clients, I'm often utilizing methylene blue and peptides together.
Yeah.
I want to see your thoughts on.
Well, you're already on the right track here because peptides, hormones, GLPs, these are all great in their own context. But if your mitochondria aren't working very well, you're not going to see the benefits, or you're going to have more side effects, right? Because if you're somebody that's on a GLP-1, you have, some metabolic syndrome, your mitochondria are stressed.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're losing weight, which is good, but that's causing more inflammation in the body.
Sure.
And what's your most common complaint you get from people on GLP-1s?
They're fatigued.
Right? And why? It's because they have a lot of inflammation, not enough mitochondrial support, and that's why they feel so crappy.
And
right?
or they're losing muscle,
and
or they're losing
too,
hair.
of course.
And so I always am going back to working on inflammation and gut healing and nutrition. That's the foundation.
Yes.
Yes, the GLPs are a great tool. Yes, the peptides are a great tool, but if their lifestyle and their foundation and if they're just like inflamed, it's not going to work as well. What's the worst thing a patient can do is go straight to a GLP without working on foundation of their health.
Yeah.
And then I'll have clients, sometimes say, well, the peptides aren't working. And it's like, well, your lifestyle has to change in order for the peptides to work and the molecules to work. But I do have some clients that complain about the GLPs making they feel fatigued or feel tired. And then there's a risk of muscle loss, right?
It's a big deal.
And so that affects their mitochondria, right?
Yes,
So
exactly. So the key with thinking about methylene blue here is that it's that foundational piece that can help mitochondrial support. It's not, again, the only thing you want to do to support your mitochondria.
Sure.
You want to optimize your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and cofactors and all the kinds of things. But that's the reason why they feel so bad, or they're not seeing the benefits that they think they should be seeing.
Right.
It's because they don't have enough mitochondrial support. And so think about methylene blue as like sort of being like your terrain foundational builder, right? And then Trommune can actually be very helpful here too. This is helping at night where the methylene was helping during the day. So I use them a lot in combination. So that my base products are people that are on peptides, GLP-1s, mitochondrial peptides, or others, even growth hormone peptides and others, is that mitochondrial support, right? And that's why you add a little bit of methylene blue. It goes a long, long way.
Right.
And it's like all of a sudden, I really feel that peptide. Like I feel great. I'm like, yeah, that's why, because now you have the machinery that can keep up with what you're trying to give it.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, is like we all want that one thing that's going to help, but it's usually a combination of things that's really going to be the most helpful.
Of
and so
course.
It's hard for people, right? They always want that one new
they just
cool
they just want
peptide.
the GLP, and I'm like, that's not how it works. You've got to do a combination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then let's talk about hormones and GABA.
Yeah.
So many clients of mine, and obviously hormones are a big topic right now. As we were both at the conference at A4M, everyone was talking about hormone optimization,
about hormones,
and brain health. And so I have a lot of clients that call me and they're like, I have such bad anxiety, I can't sleep, and it's mostly females. in the perimenopausal, menopausal age that are struggling with sleep, and they're struggling with obviously belly fat. And so but the biggest thing I see a pattern with is brain fog, anxiety, and sleep for hormonal changes.
For sure.
So this is I think what I've been recommending is Calm and Z's for these ladies, but I wanted to see what you thought.
Yeah, well, it's a really challenging time. And one of the biggest shifts is progesterone levels. So progesterone is a woman's hormone that regulates a lot of things, but it actually is a fantastic GABA support.
Sure.
So it actually, when you lose your progesterone, you lose your GABA support.
Yeah.
And that's one of the major reasons why, sleeping is an issue, irritability, insomnia, which is sleeping, obviously, stress, anxiety, depression. For a long time, we used to think that depression, as I mentioned, was like a serotonin deficiency, but it's not. Right? It's actually more related to GABA, actually.
Right. Yep.
And so as a result, like you optimize somebody's GABA levels, and their depression goes away, their anxiety can go away, not always, but a lot of times, and then their irritability and mental health issues, like it's actually really big. And so, for me, I always say that progesterone is probably the first thing you should be going for here, if you can, if you're up for it and looking at HRT and things like that.
Absolutely, I agree.
But even still, because of that shift, working on the GABA system can be gigantic. And so we have our Tro-Z for sleep. We have our Tro-Calm for relaxation during the day without causing you to feel like sedated. It just makes you less anxious. And I think the way we think about it is that there are other hormones that are going on that are also changing as you get older, melatonin, serotonin. And so Tro-Z was developed as 8 different ingredients that are working on 5 different systems. So it's probably the most comprehensive sleep support out there. So yes, you're getting GABA support. We have 2 different ingredients, one called agerin, another one called honokiol. Agerin's from a psychedelic mushroom called the amanita mushroom.
I had to look it up because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it's the mushroom from Santa Claus mythology, and it's also Alice in Wonderland and Mario Brothers and things.
Oh, wow.
But it's a poisonous mushroom. You dry it, it gets less poison, and it becomes psychedelic. But there's still a poisonous ingredient in there called ibotenic acid. We don't use that one. We use the other one called agerin.
Good.
Agerin is long-acting on the GABA receptor.
Got
and then we have something called honokiol, which is also from magnolia bark, also working on the GABA system. And something, CBN and CBD in there, which are working on the endocannabinoid system. 5-HTP and melatonin, so serotonin and melatonin support. And also cordycepin, which I mentioned earlier in Troimmune, also works on the adenosine system, so it helps with increasing deep sleep. And then something called adenosine itself. Adenosine is going to give you more sleep pressure.
Right.
So you get it pretty quickly, and you get this comprehensive support throughout the evening. And so we know that if you want to regulate your nervous system, one of the major things you need to do is sleep well.
Right.
And so that's something we talk about a lot at our company. Dr. Ted has this saying that, and I've taken this to heart slowly over the years, which is that your day starts when you go to bed.
Yes.
Not when you
I've heard this
wake up.
before.
And this is a big shift in people. If you think of sleep as the first thing you do every day rather than the last thing, you actually start giving it the importance.
It's a little more priority.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just don't think people realize how important it was till recently.
Yeah,
more and more people are starting to talk about it. I don't think you can properly heal. Obviously, you're healing while you're sleeping. And if you're not sleeping, you're not healing.
Yep, and
if you're not
becomes a
getting
cycle,
deep sleep, And melatonin only goes so far. I mean, it can be fantastic, but
it's only one.
Sometimes it doesn't work for people.
It's only one hormone out of the multiple,
Totally.
and multiple neurotransmitters and hormones, and you have to really think about it in totality, right? If you really want to help somebody, and long term, you want to optimize their sleep architecture, like how much deep sleep they're getting, how much REM sleep they're getting. Otherwise, if you just give like these hammers, THC, for example, will put people to bed, but it trashes their deep sleep. Like Ativan and Xanax, Ambien, they all do the same thing.
Right.
You're going to feel like you slept, but you're not going to.
And then they have to increase the dose, and then they wake up groggy, and it's a pattern.
And all those things, So I'm really a big fan of, especially during hormonal changes, for perimenopausal women, I found a lot of good success using our GABA products, using our Tro-Calm, using our Tro-Z. Also the methylene blue too, because it's a significant stress on the mitochondria when you're going through those hormonal shifts. There's a lot more inflammation, there's a lot more mitochondrial stress, and you can use the blue carnitine or the pure methylene blue and see some significant benefits that way too.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so good. So let's talk a little bit about ADHD.
Okay.
And ADD. So my son had significant learning disabilities, my oldest. And I obviously detoxed him, worked on his gut. I know, obviously, he actually struggled with reading. He struggled with several learning disabilities. He was actually behind a few years in school, but I basically worked on just his overall health, like diet. I worked on like supplementation, detoxing. He was also exposed to mold, and that was a big contributor as to why he was having such a hard time in class and with learning and reading. And then my husband also has some attention issues where he has a harder time focusing. And that is a huge topic And clients are kids, adults, they're all affected by their focus and attention. So I wanted to see your thoughts on, I know for my husband, the Canatine changed his life. He's able to focus. He's so much more productive. I wanted to see like your thoughts on that, and if you've had a lot of clients reach out and say their lives were changed as well.
Yeah. What was his experience? Tell me a little more about your husband's experience.
Yeah. So basically, he is creative, and he would just struggle with getting like tasks done. He's like amazing at what he does, but like with production and just like completing tasks or focusing when I'm talking, you know, like how most men do. That would not always work out so well. So basically the Canatine just made such a difference for him.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't?
I'm just kidding.
Because I'm like, most men struggle with focusing.
This is true.
I mean, women do too. Look, I struggled too. I'm not just saying just him, but like, I think we all want to be more productive. We all want to be able to complete tasks and finish our thoughts.
Yeah.
And so I know that the Canatine was a game changer. It was like, he says it's like an alternative to Adderall. And so I just wanted to see if you've heard that before or like what your thoughts are. Many times.
And I think the reason is that we're creating this, let's call it a symphony of combinations with methylene blue, nicotine, caffeine, and CBD, where you get this rise and this focus and the productivity and the stimulation, but you're also getting the support of methylene blue as that redox agent is helping with the antioxidant capacity, your CBD, which is also neuroprotective, along with the caffeine and the nicotine together. So it's this beautiful synergy, the sum of greater than the parts thing we talked about before. And it's, people tell me it feels like being on a stimulant, right? I've never had these before, so I don't know for sure, but what's nice about our stuff is that there really is no come down or crash afterwards because you have that anti-inflammatory support while you're doing it. Now, I can't recommend anybody stop their medications without working with a provider. It's really important to do that. But what I have done with providers under medical supervision is start weaning people off of those medications while we start giving them some blue Canatine. Sometimes what we'll do is they're taking their stimulant 5 days a week and they take the weekends off. So we'll have them test it on a weekend to see what dose seems to work well for them. And then from there, they can start figuring out, well, maybe I'll start going on a shorter acting Adderall or something like that. And then while I'm on that shorter acting, I'll add the blue Canatine if I need it or as I need it. And then as I need less of the Adderall, I'll use less of it. And then hopefully over time, what we can do is get them on the blue Canatine in the morning. And then some people, what they'll do is take a little bit of a dose in the afternoon, or they'll just take the pure methylene blue in the afternoon, like the Just Blue, for example, as a way to get more energy support without having the stimulation. Some people will feel if they take the blue Canatine too late in the day, that they have a hard time falling asleep. But
I can see that.
Some people even say that with the Just Blue as well. But we found that, well, at least I found that if like a dosing around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for most people is okay, as long as you're not a slow caffeine metabolizer. But I use like an AM sort of lunch combination of the blue Canatine and the Just Blue for a lot of kids and adults, and like not kids as much as adults really for me in my practice. And that's been really game changing for a lot of people. So short answer is that I think that we've had a very good combination of ingredients in there that on their own wouldn't be very helpful. Like if your husband just took 50 milligrams of caffeine, it'd be like, that's like nothing. It's only a quarter cup of coffee. If you took a half a milligram of nicotine, maybe a little bit of stimulation for like an hour, but not a lot. But then you add that two together, and then you have those two together, and you have the methylene blue, and you have the CBD in there. It's like, wow, that's and there are even low doses of those too. So it's like, it's very interesting how has come together like that. It was our first product actually.
Was it really?
One we came out with in 2020, and it really did hit the ground running because it's a very good product and it really does work. So if you need productivity, you need focus for 3 to 5 hours without a come down or without a crash, it's something to try for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Because I feel like we were always looking for an alternative to Adderall. Adderall can be great, but obviously it comes with side effects majority of the time.
It does,
And so I was looking for something like a healthy version. I was like, you're not going on Adderall, we're going to try something else. And this has been it. This has been a game changer.
And more coffee is not the answer, right? Because that's people like have more coffee and then they crash, more coffee and then they crash. More coffee
it affects your adrenal glands.
And everything else. So this is much better, much more supportive. And I use it in people that are even quite sick sometimes, even like on the early journey of trying to optimize their health, because the nicotine in there is also anti-inflammatory. So if you tolerate caffeine, you can typically tolerate blue Canatine. You just start off with a low dose, start with a quarter of a troche.
But it's never made me jittery or anything like that. I've never felt that way.
I have.
Have you?
No, I took the full one by accident.
Oh, no. I've never taken the full one, no.
Well, I was doing a podcast or like Instagram Live or something, and I was trying to demonstrate you could swallow the Just Blue instead of putting it in your mouth.
Oh, no.
And I realized I took out the wrong box, and it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And at 6 o'clock, I was going like this. And I was like, I think I must have taken the wrong product.
Shoot. Oh my gosh.
It's okay. No big deal. I mean,
I was always curious if you took it, because I'm like, he talks so fast. He's so on it. He must be taking Canatine all the time.
See, I don't need it. And so the thing is, some people need stimulants before they have conversations.
I do. Yeah.
I don't.
No.
I don't, because if I do, I speak faster than I do now.
Oh, wow.
And so over the years, I've realized that I do not need stimulants before conversations.
Gotcha.
Because I already speak at 1.25x for most people.
Got it.
So.
I thought you were always just taking the Canatine.
No, I don't take the Canatine. I don't take that one. I take the Just Blue, but actually, again, I take more of the Calm in general. So.
Okay, gotcha. So you're opposite. You already have a lot of energy.
My brain is going fast. My energy levels, I don't always correspond to that.
Okay, but your brain.
But my brain is always going very, very
fast.
fast.
Got it.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This has been so fun and so informative. You've shared so much good information. Obviously, I talk about Troscriptions all the time. It's one of my favorite companies. I'm so excited to have him here to share with you guys why I like the product so much. He's obviously way more informative than I am when I'm talking about it. I'm so glad you got into the science, because so many clients of mine are curious and want to know more about the products. And my audience loves Troscriptions and the products that we've used so far. So thank you for coming.
My pleasure. This has been great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so where can everybody find you?
My personal stuff, my website is drscottsherr.com, my name, DrScottsherr. There you can find my consulting practice using health optimization medicine. I also have a consulting work in hyperbaric oxygen therapy that I've done for many years. Our company is called Troscriptions. You can find a link there, or you can go to troscriptions.com. We also have our nonprofit, Health Optimization Medicine and Practice. You can check that out at homehope.org. If you're a practitioner, you can get trained in it. We'd love to have you. You can check it out, and we have all these modules that are great and what I use in my own clinical practice. On social media, at Dr. Scott Sherr, my name spelled out the same way, at Troscriptions, at homehope.org. And I do have a company called One Base Health as well that does work in the hyperbaric integrative technology space as well.
So you guys can find in my link in bio, I have Troscriptions listed in there. You can also book a coaching call with me, and I'll help guide you on the best products for you in combination with any kind of wellness advice, whether it's peptides, GLPs, and obviously Troscriptions. I use other supplementation as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will hopefully have you back again. Yeah?
I would.
If you're back in town,
yeah. You guys have a comfy place here.
It's been so fun.